Yeah, we're live. 7:22. What are you going to do? Actually, I'm working. Look, that's me. Man, that camera does not want to pick up other cameras. Welcome. See, look at that. Uh, finishing editing a video right now and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Finishing editing a video on, your basic kind of small block shading modifications, which are all very cool. People love that stuff. They want to know, even now, people want to know, what do headers do? What do four barrels do? What do intake manifolds or ported heads? All of that kind of stuff. That's why I have a job. But this will be the poll for tonight. In fact, okay, so the poll question for today: do you want to see prices in the videos on the parts that I test? So when I run a test, like I'm about to load this video up on small block stuff, or testing an intake manifold and a carburetor and a camshaft and a cylinder head and yada yada, headers, whatever. Do you guys want to see the prices on that? I'm hoping that a lot of people say yes, because I did that on this video. So I'm trying something new. I even did a recap of all the pricing and the power gains and all that stuff. So hopefully you guys will like having more information. I know all of the regulars here, all the live crew, the two live crew, all of those guys are definitely going to say yes, because more information is always better. So we need to talk a little bit about that. Let me know if you guys think that that's a good idea. Also, so that you guys understand, and I get this no matter what video we do. So we get, and this says way more about the individual people that are making these comments than it does about anything. But I seem to have pushed, pinched, or touched a nerve, I think is the right quote. I seem to have touched a nerve in the latest video that I did. The first nerve that I touched was posting the video on the 375 horse L78 and having it not work. So people were livid about that. Oh, no, you just put this up for no reason. Yeah, that's what I plan to do. I wanted to spend 5 days putting the motor together, spend thousands of dollars on it, and then have it not work so that I can make $50 on a video. Yeah, that's why I'm in business. That's why I want to do this. That makes no sense at all. But sometimes you just have to report what happens. And then on the next nerve that I touch, and this is even more important, the L78, people seem to love that. And when I put the video up and run it all stock, and then when we run it modified, people are going to love that, I'm sure. And it makes me want to do the LS6. And then right behind that, I'm going to do a stage 1 Buick 455. I just have to roll over. I have to sell each one of these to pay for the next one, because it's not cheap. But the next nerve that I touched is when I did the cam video. So I did the cam video and said, look, I've tested hundreds of cams at 2,000 RPM on these LS motors. You're not going to get 30 or 40 or 50 foot-pounds of torque. You're not going to get those kinds of gains. Not with a camshaft, not with any camshaft. And so all the individual cam expert gurus out there lost their mind, and they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never tried a cam that has 99 LSA and, has advanced 50 degrees and, all these things. I'm like, look, I understand what cams do. I've tested more than most people. I understand what happens when you advance a cam. It's not automatic that it gains power. And I know that from experience, having done it several times over the past 20 or 30 years. But even most recently, being very disappointed. I wanted it to work on the LS9 camshaft. I wanted it so badly to gain all the low speed torque that it's missing back by advancing it. And guess what? It didn't do that, because it doesn't always do that. And that's the hard pill that these guys have to swallow. And the thing that this is their personality coming through and not reality. It's a different thing. And that's that they don't want to be told that the thing that they live and breathe for, I'm a cam guy. It's like telling a tuner, look, you can't tune around this problem because it's a broken spring. Oh, I know I can. I'm a tuner. I can do all of it. Same thing with the cam guys. Well, I'm a cam expert. Good. And you may very well know way more about camshafts than I will ever know. But none of that, you may be bigger and tougher or younger or better looking or whatever. None of that changes the statement or the facts that I presented. None of it does. I'm getting a lot of people. I'm getting people that are trying to do it passive aggressively, and people that are doing it aggressively, and people that are just blatantly want to throw things at me. But the reality is, you're not going to get big gains there with a camshaft, because the camshaft isn't really coming into play there. I mean, the cam has to open and close the valves, but what the engine is doing is not very receptive to even major changes. I mean, I've changed the cam duration by 30 degrees at 2000 RPM. And, you would think we could lose torque there a little bit, but you'd think that there would be a major swing. And there's not. There's not even a direction like, oh, as we go from, back to stock, because we can make a little more than stock. You can do that. You can manipulate the cam timing. You can close the intake earlier, whatever you want to do. You can advance the cam. You can try to run less duration, low lift. You can throw all the cool tricks at it that you want, and you can make it a little bit more. But my point in the video, and still until somebody shows me different, we can get 50, 70, 100 horsepower. You're not going to get that down low. You can't do that. When we make more peak torque, we make it at a higher engine speed. It did that every camshaft. Oh, but you didn't run this Joe Schmo's cam. And I get guys bringing up David Vizard's like formula all the time. And I wish that they would watch David Vizard and listen to what he's saying, because the formulas for a small block Chevy. And David has not done a lot of testing on LS motors, particularly junkyard LS motors with this factory intake manifold, and trying to get power at 2000 RPM. But they want to apply David being legendary and understanding camshafts better than most. And I 100% agree with that, but that's not going to change the facts. But the cam guys have like lost their mind about this. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's kind of awesome. Yes. Racer, your cam is bigger and tougher and better looking, and 3/4 better or whatever, full better. I don't know. It's all that. Everybody is like that. That's all good though. And I do YouTube for a living. So you just take all that stuff with a grain of salt. It's just interesting that rather than saying, hey, look, like I said in the video, I want somebody to show me that this isn't right, that there is something here where we can do big gains. And they're like, yeah, but you have to, and then they're trying to backpedal and say, well, you got to put the combination together. If you add more displacement or compression or change the intake manifold, I'm like, wait, hang on. We know all those things do that. We know displacement adds torque. We know compression adds torque. We know if we put a 25-inch runner length on it, it will change torque. We know if we put boost on, all that does. That's not the statement. The statement that I'm making isn't that you can't ever change torque at 2000 RPM. You can all the time. We saw that in a comparison between the 5.3 and the 8.1. The bigger motor makes a lot more torque. But, people want what they want, and what actually happens sometimes are different things. So really, this poll is not 100%. Wow. I'm going to have to go through and let's see who's saying no. iSport throwing out part prices. I want prices in the videos. Yes, sure. I like to see prices as well. Car Peeps, Burns is in the house. Just scares me being poor. Hey, you're preaching to the choir. Power per dollar. Yep, that's right. You got to get bang for the buck in there. People that ask basic questions need to find copies of old magazines and read. That's not true. Every time we get new people in this industry that are just stepping in and just learning about this engine family or about engines, it's our job, having been here a while and learned about a lot of this stuff, it's our job to help them. We want all of the new people to come in. If new people come in and all the idiots that are here yell at them and berate them and tell them that they need to learn and don't come over here, then they're not going to come over here. Then what does that do to our industry? It makes it shrink. That's not good. We need to welcome them with open arms. We need to help them. That's why I have this channel. I don't have this channel to talk to experts. I'm not going to teach John Causey how to do dyno testing or how to make more power, or Nelson or Steve Morris or any of these guys. But guys that are brand new, they're just learning. I want them to come here, and I want to. And I, even if I answer the same question all the time, that's okay. If I've helped one guy, that's nothing but good, or girl. We don't get a lot of the female persuasion here, but that's still good though. James, you're only one of 2 likes. There's 40 now, but there's still 100 people here. We could get the likes up. I think for the vast majority of enthusiasts, cost is a factor. I'd say it is for almost everybody. I'd like to keep up on how much you need to save for your projects. Yep. We often overlook the cost of supporting mods. That's true. Getting an intake manifold. Well, do you have to get different bolts for that? Do you have to get gaskets? Do you have to get carburetor studs? Do you have to get a new carburetor? Does your distributor still fit? There's a lot of stuff. Built 486 following your build, except used a Bullet hydraulic roller, 234, 243. Nice. Bullet makes good stuff. Whatever happened to PWA? PAW, you mean? Performance Automotive Warehouse? PAW went out of business a long time ago, but they used to be the stuff. I might look around. I might still have their catalogs. I want you to run turbo on a single bank to feed a V-Series engine. I already tried that on a big block and it didn't work, but it will work. We just didn't have the right size turbo and stuff on it. Saab did it on their production motor, so we know that it works. You just have to get enough exhaust flow to get the turbo to spool over and then feed the motor. And then once it feeds the motor, everything's happy. Next small block Chevy you build, you'd like to dyno test an Elgin 1024P cam. Realize that you do all comp cams. I don't do all comp cams. Like to see you pick a comp cam hydraulic camshaft against an Elgin 1024. Well, how big is the 1024? What are the specs on? I don't even know what it is. Let's see. I do stuff with the guys from Elgin. I do like the guys from Elgin. Okay. 230, 230. Is that what it is? It's actually not going to be a great cam. It's a single pattern cam. It's a small, it's a low lift cam. Lobe separation 109. That's fairly tight. So it should be fairly, I would expect it to be fairly torquey for a 230 cam. Where it is 4 easy payments of $19.95. I don't have one payment of $19.95. Richard, don't cater to the 2,000 RPM folks. Tell them to try it themselves. If you don't understand how engines work, it's their fault. Everybody wants the dyno curve. Wherever it's not, they want it. So they want it either to go to 8,000 or they want it to start at, I've seen 8 guys off idle. So we go to wide open throttle, off idle. Not everyone knows how much some of the stuff costs or how much it should. That's true. And I even put in this video, I put in alternatives because, for instance, we used an RPM air gap, an Edelbrock RPM air gap, which I think is and certainly was back then, it probably still is, the go-to dual plane street strip kind of intake manifold for a small block Chevy. There are like lower cost alternatives to that. The Speedmaster stuff and who was the guys before Speedmaster, Performance Products, and there's lots of offshore things that are, we know that at least comparable in terms of power and quite a bit less money. So there's ways to get stuff, for less money, and everybody's looking for that. Alan, what's up? Helen, did you have a question? What's a 327 make stock with 60 over 510 cam? The lift on the cam tells me nothing about what the cam's going to do. I need the duration numbers at 50, and I need to know what compression it is. I need to know what intake manifold you have. I need to know if you have headers. I have 327 videos up, so you could kind of get an idea. And if it's 60 over, it's not a 327 anymore, right? It's over 330 inches. The Dyna at 583 horsepower has AFR 290 oval ports. Those will support ALOT. It's 496 with comp BR 314. Work with an air gap. It will, but the air gap is not ideal for that camshaft and that cylinder head on that displacement motor. And Butch, the 300 is a, I'm going to take a look at your other cam. I thought it was in the 230s. Yeah, 234, 243 is going to be a lot smaller than the 255, 262 camshaft. And it's also 650 lift. So that solid roller cam, even though we're going to subtract the lash a little bit, we run it a little tighter than they suggest anyways. But that's a much bigger cam, and it would make a bit more power on that 496. My cam is bigger and tougher and younger. I know. I get that a lot anymore. Prices on cam spring combos, then move up to other head option prices for NA turbo applications, and ultimately bottom end upgrade NA turbos. What you would get here more often than not is put a cam and springs with all the other things being stock, unless you're trying to make 1,000,000 horsepower with an LS. But for 4-digit stuff or less, you just use the head that's on the LS that you got from the wrecking yard. And the turbo is a 1,000 horsepower turbo. If only somebody had a website that could cater to all this and give you combinations where you just get that. That might be coming. Why does torque always cross at 5,500? It crosses at 5252, and that's because the formula for torque, horsepower equals torque times RPM divided by 5252. So they always have to cross there, no matter what kind of motor it is. They always do. I'd be interested in seeing prices. I have no idea what any of this costs, though I watch routinely. Well, B-dub. Part of the problem with some of these things, like the Omni, is some of these things aren't available anymore, and you can't find them unless you go to the car farm. Let's see. Here we go. Ivan, you didn't miss the best part. I'm still here. I'm literally the best part. How can I make less? Okay. That's good. We're going to get to that. I'm still scrolling up because I still went way too far. Okay. Kevin Keith Smith, I do want to try single exhaust, the 3-inch dual into a 3-inch single, because I want to see if that adds power. My wife says my cam has too much duration. Make more power, 2,000 RPM with, yeah, with stroke, bore, airflow, cubic inch, yeah. Stage 1 Buick 455 makes good low-end torque. It should. I'm curious to see if it really makes more low-speed torque than, or peak torque than, like the LS6 454. I'll actually be surprised if it does, given the head flow difference between those two. James, you're going to leave because people are asking for 2,000 RPM. I spun the number 2 main bearing in my LS. What are the chances it'll spin again with the new bearings? Did you find out why it spun? And when it spun, did the cap or the block, is that bigger now? Because if it is, it's not going to work very well. You need to see if it changed that clearance. Anyone here know about turbo diesels? My Fairlane decided to fry the pink resistor wire. Lost key on, under dash smoke is fun. Uh-oh. Jumper the voltage regulator to coil to make it home. Now test what the cause is. Hopefully, Kevin, it didn't do a bunch of damage to the rest of the wiring. Due to prices changing next year, those numbers are meaningless. I would think meaningless is probably overstating it. But I did mention in the video that a lot of this testing was done a decade ago. Prices have certainly changed in 10 years, much more than 1 year, especially in this last 10 years. It certainly has changed, and some of these may be even older than 10 years. But if somebody's watching the video and they're thinking about doing this, they're thinking about doing with today's prices. So the thing that I ended up doing is I have to give you today's prices because I don't have a decade ago's prices. The no's are the same people that voted no on the twin M90s. Yeah. A while back, I ordered a 383 complete kit and brought block and pistons to machine shop. After I put it together, it was a low torque monster quarter pedal burnouts with these. Good. The 383 is going to be much torqueier than a typical 350. I thought boring and getting a stroker kit from an aluminum 6-liter LS block would be reasonable. Canadian prices make it cheaper to go get 2 complete engines. Nice. Google, I don't see on any turbo application, whether it's a diesel or a gas engine, how a larger downpipe is going to ever do anything but help. Yes, on twin M90s, power will be the same this year and next year. Prices won't. The prices on the junkyard M90s probably should be the same. I have a cam question. How can I make less torque down low to keep my transmission alive? That's easy. We can do that. Got lots of cams that'll do that. Are you talking about eBay prices? I didn't talk eBay prices on the stuff that I put up for the video. I went to Summit for the for RPM air gaps and carburetors and those things. I put new prices up with alternatives for some of the lower price things, and then also recommended, like for instance, when we ran the Quadrajet carburetor on this thing, we ran a Sean Murphy inductions carburetor on it, only because that's the only usable Quadrajet that we had at West Tech. If you were, and we started with a 2-barrel motor and we went to a Quadrajet and a cast iron 4-barrel manifold, if you were going to do that, you wouldn't start with a 2-barrel. If you got a motor from the wrecking yard, you would at least get it with a Quadrajet, and you would get the Quadrajet. Even if you had to spend a little bit of money to rebuild it, you would get a Quadrajet, and you wouldn't have to spend the $500 or $600 on a new Quadrajet. So I mentioned that kind of thing in there. Because of your channel, I bought my first 5.3 this week just for a cam spring upgrade, and I have a few guys looking for another 5.3 to do bottom end work on. Nice. Recal, after the money you spent on your Buick, you're definitely going to LS next time. See, that's a learning experience. I know it's off topic, but some cool type budget turbo 4-cylinder stuff would be cool. You mean like a Dodge Omni turbo? like the 2 Dodge Omni motors that I'm trying to get running on the engine dyno right now. Or the, well, J series is technically a V6. But I have some K series up too, and some B series stuff up too. I've got an LQ4 in my garage waiting for me to finish my transmission or your transplant or something. Thanks for the inspiration. I don't know where I'd be without you. See, that's how every comment should be. not these other ones that I don't know what I'm doing and they hate me and all that stuff. Is a 232 Chrysler any good? I don't know anything about that motor. I'd like to use a Holley HP, but I need a trans controller. We run the Dominator and the HP, depending on which one is there. Kind of run them interchangeably for what I'm doing, but the Dominator for my wide open throttle needs is you know, I'm not using 99% of what's there. If you're building an 800 horsepower street motor that would occasionally be taken to the track, would you give up some low end to help with traction or through caution to wind and just let the turbo spool? If you're doing an 800 horsepower motor, you probably would be better off if you're running it at the track, running more engine speed. I think it probably would do better in terms of ET and mile an hour if it ran a little more engine speed. And an 800 horsepower 5.3, you could run enough camshaft in it. I mean, you could put a small cam in it and run a turbo that spooled up like a S475 deal. But you probably will have to manage traction unless you have a really good chassis. Yeah. I don't think you have to worry about off idle traction. Aunt D, you're right. I used to build motors for Koji and Company. We ran Vortec 454 Chevys, wide open throttle at 1820 RPM. So it was a generator, a stationary generator deal. Probably we tried 5 or 6 different cams and none of them made any power difference. The guys from Jimmy, my buddy Jimmy from HP, did that with big block Fords too. Similar kind of thing. I actually think as we went up in displacement, we might see more potential gain at that engine speed on some of the bigger motors than we do on some of the smaller motors from cam timing. But yeah, he said they chase cam timing a lot, and they're looking for, you know, onesies and twosies. It was next to nothing. When you're road racing your Mustang, what suspension and brake upgrades did you do to it? Well, when I first bought it, I bought it to showroom stock race, so we didn't do anything to it. And then I realized after I went out there that other people's interpretation of actual my idea of showroom stock was, well, I put a cage in it and I bought it from the showroom and I went out and raced it. Other cars were not like that. They were they were blueprinted. Some of them had factory shocks that were probably not factory shocks. They probably were Conies and stuff. But later on, I put you know, shocks and springs and bars. I had adjustable Tokikos on there for a while. I had Conies on there for a while. I had a variety of different springs. Now I think the car has a Kenny Brown like coilover setup, but I'm talking about putting something different on it now. It's been sitting for a long time. I don't know what kind of shape it's in. And on brakes, I don't think I ever put big brakes on my car. When we were World Challenge racing, we had bare brakes on those cars. How fuel type play into cam design? I don't know. Is your question, how does fuel type play into cam design? I wouldn't design a cam any different for E85 than I would for pump gas because we use them for the same application. The E85 just allows us to run more compression and more time. And so I would use the same camshaft for that as I would E85. Harrop in Australia makes a screw supercharger for an old big block, made 1,000 horsepower, an old 454. just because you probably don't hear it enough. Thank you for sharing all this, and thank you, Keith. And Harrop uses. I thought that Harrop used not a twin screw, but I thought that they used the Eaton, like the TVS, like the 2650 rotor packs in their stuff. But I could be wrong. I haven't seen enough of the Harrop stuff. I've seen their cool intake manifolds though. Why is the 327 so quick? I don't know what you mean. If you take a look at the comparison I did between the 302 and the 327 and the 350, you'll see that they're all kind of limited in making about the same peak power, but the bigger motor makes a lot more average power. It makes more torque. I'd be interested in seeing prices. I have no idea what any of this stuff costs. Oh, it's B-dub. How much is a 44 out of an 86 RV worth? That's an 86. Is that carbureted or is that throttle body injected? I can't remember when the Gen 5 stuff started. A big block is always good to have. A 42-minute commercial just popped up. My thing isn't even 42 minutes long. I'm scrolling back. Man, where did all this go? Beer Hounds, thank you very much. I don't know I don't know how I got past all this stuff. Oh, here we go. Old versus a Pontiac 350. Is the Omni back together? The Omni is running and driving around. The next thing for the Omni is paint. I'm hoping another chassis dyno before paint though. Waiting for the 1,000,000 horsepower LS combo. We just have to stack a bunch of LS motors together. Brap Z, are you the same Brap from Hybrid Z? I went to Hybrid Z all the time. Motor Chen did that at West Tech. What did they do at West Tech? A 4-inch downpipe into a 3-inch true dual exhaust is very loud, even with mufflers. I bet. So Brap, I've got a 71 240 that I need to do something with. thinking all kinds of stuff. I was a member there years ago and I had my Z. Unless you want some stuff Megasware offers, a Terminator X doesn't like the usage of MAF sensors. We need more roasting. Would I be able to test a boost leak through the turbo inlet with compressed air with an open PCV port on the back of my Lightning lower intake manifold? You should be able to plug all of the leaks, and we test for boost leaks pressurizing the turbo all the time. Admiral's off, back to his book. LQ4, a 4L80, truck Norris cam, stock intake and heads. That's a good combination. When you said Google, set my phone off. Start searching for stuff randomly. I should have said Google Richard Holdner. Twin turbos, my SRT4 loved a 3-inch downpipe. They usually love big downpipes. Have you worked on a 996? If that question is for me, I have not. I have worked on a 1972 911 T, and then I don't remember what year it was, but it was a 924. Because you run a turbo without a downpipe. You could, but I don't think it's going to work as well. Have you done it? Mopar Turbo encabulator? I don't think so. Just the NA encabulators. I'd be more interested in fuel figures, brake-specific fuel consumptions, especially when comparing engines, 5.3 versus 8.1, let's say. I don't have brake-specific fuel consumptions on fuel-injected motors. It's not accurate. Just put an L86 intake and throttle body on my 5.3 L83. I think the L86 intake is supposed to be better. What do you want to know the max horsepower potential of a D1, not a D1 SC? I don't know. I'm thinking 850 or 900 or something. Butcher, what's going on? And you don't want to see the price tags? I learned more specifically pertinent information watching your decade of YouTube videos and from comments on the live chat section in these sections than I have from anything else. Good. That's good. I'm glad it's helping somebody. Sell the Boxer. Uh, 232 AMC. Again, I haven't run one. Put a torque arm on the Fox. Actually, I was talking to Bart, Bart Spivey for Bart Works on his. I think he's got a double A arm front suspension. I don't remember what the rear was. I think it was like the one that we ran in our B cars and in Boris's A car in World Challenge. And I think it was a 3-link. I don't think it was a torque arm underneath. I think it was an upper arm that was adjustable. Have you heard of a 387 Ford 351 with a 393 crank and 302 pistons, 302 190 heads? Have I heard of that? I haven't heard of that combination. Milo, speaking of pricing, I have a daily driver 97 454. I'd like to add a cam and springs. Someone has a $1,500 kit, lifters and springs and rotating. On a 97, you probably don't need to change the lifters. It has hydraulic rollers from the factory. We reuse the factory hydraulic roller lifters. I haven't had a problem with those. Let's see. Man, just click on one thing and it scrolls down like 15 pages. Okay, let's see. I was wondering if I should gap the rings on my Gen 7. Probably a good idea. Gen 1 small block. Howard 600 lift cam. You guys, when you're talking about camshafts, the lift means nothing. It doesn't. You might as well not even tell me. It doesn't matter. If you want to talk about the camshaft, the important parts of the camshaft are the duration numbers at 50. So it's going to be 224, 230, 230, 236, 230, 224. Then we would talk to you about why that's not a good idea. The duration numbers at 50 are what make a camshaft. The lift is not that important. The skip ad that came up was 42 minutes. How can an ad be 42 minutes when we're only 40 minutes into the live feed? Just checking in. Yes to cost. Yep. Julius. $421 small book Chevy, 10.5 to 1. Super Victor, 262, 263, 273. That's a real cam. There's a question mark, Rick, at the end of that. What is the question mark for? I don't know. If you're asking me if that's a good combination, it seems like it's going to make good power. All the things are right there. Cogeneration, 75 kilowatt, and all the heat went into the building's heating loop, ran on natural gas. Our exhaust temp was less than 300 degrees. Wow. Why did a ZZ502 cam improve so much of the torque curve? Yeah, it's the bigger that the motor is, the more camshaft you can use at a lower engine speed. So a 224 cam in a 496 is not like a 224 cam in a 4.8 liter. The RB would be perfect for the Z, you're right. 750 blow through will get you far if it's 85. I'd have to run no jet. The argument about not putting prices up there because they're going to change over the years would be like saying I don't want the information right now because it might change later. That doesn't make any sense. It's better to have it now. Even if it does change later, you still had part of it. If you don't have it now and you don't have it later, how come Dulcich never goes live? I don't know if Dulcich does that. And also, I don't really talk to Steve that much. The RB with a 4-speed? No, 5-speed. YouTube Premium is worth it. Sharpie, you're looking at two S480s. What do you think about the 387? I don't know anything about it. Like I said, I've never tried to do the math on putting all of that together. That displacement motor, we've run lots of 393s that are in that range, and it makes more power obviously than a 351. I would put the L28T in it and keep it mostly stock. Changing out the Corvette servo. Yep. I have a Corvette servo in my truck. It makes my truck a Corvette. Tim, you need motivation to replace the kitchen sink or the disposal? Well, I suggest hooking it to 220. Then you can use it as a disposal, and you can like trim trees and stuff with it. You can mulch. Shorter stroke means quicker RPM. A shorter stroke doesn't mean that. The displacement usually dictates the power output of the motor. If you change the weight of the RPM, change the weight of the rotating assembly, you can improve the power. Wanting to do a Trailblazer SS intake swap on my 5.3, kind of use the current fuel injectors. Does anybody know? James might know this. I don't remember if the Trailblazer has a different height injector compared to the truck manifold. We don't. We put whatever injector we have, usually a Deca 80 in it, just because we put spacers and stuff in it. What effect does intake valve diameter have on RPM or power? Well, intake valve diameter can, if it does, improve flow, but it doesn't always. And it doesn't have any effect on RPM. Like if you put a set of 243 heads with a bigger valve on a 5.3 or 4.8, it makes power at the same RPM because it's not one of the determining factors. The camshaft and the intake manifold are the big determining factors, and then to some extent the head flow. Although usually, especially with the LS, it has more than enough head flow to make a lot more engine speed. And even with that intake manifold, if you put more camshaft in it, you can run much more engine speed. But the valve diameter is going to have very little effect on that. What did the LS6 454 make you're comparing the stage 1 455 against? I haven't run either one of those. I haven't put the LS6 together yet. It's just all the machine work has been done. My dad has an original L78 Camaro with a General Kinetics cam in it. And now I'm curious to see what the L78 in stock trim is going to do. With the software you use, can you calculate the area under the curve, power torque curve? And would that be a better measure of a good motor? I don't know what you mean by area under the curve. Whenever I show you guys dyno results, I show you the whole curve. So where is the area under the curve? What exactly are people meaning by that? What numbers are you looking for? Are you talking about average power production over a given range? What are you talking about when you say area under the curve? That term is used a lot, but I have no idea what people's specific understanding are of what they're asking. I don't know what that is. Ryan, your 600 lift cam is not going to be 300, 308 at 50. It's, at least I don't think it will be. That would be a massively big camshaft. More than likely, it's going to be 240 or 250 or something like that. In your opinion, what's the holy grail Trans Am? I don't know. I'm not a Pontiac expert. I would think that if you were hanging out with all the Pontiac people and you had an actual like Ram Air 5 303 Trans Am motor in a 69, or I don't know if they had that in 68, that would be kind of cool. But I like all of them. Like a Super Duty Trans Am would be awesome. Any Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am would be awesome. I had an old Datsun Z with a 350 and a 150 shot of nitrous. You had air shocks on it with what did you do to the IRS and what did you do to the diff and stuff on that? Because that'd be a lot of torque for an R180. Super Duty 455, that's a good one. Take the integral of the curve with respect to RPM. Again, I'm sorry for my ignorance. I don't know what you mean by integral of the curve. You got to spell it out for me. Do you want the average power from 2000 to 6000? Do you want the average torque? Do you want the combination of both of those? What is it you're looking for? There are lots of ways for individuals to determine the worth of a motor based on the thing that they want that motor to do. Some guys just care about, hey, I'm all like if you're running at Bonneville, you might only care about the last 1000 or 1500 RPM. You could care less what all the rest of it is because it's not doing anything. You're all it's doing is getting you to where you need to be to run the top speed. So the rest of the stuff is irrelevant. For other people driving around on the street, they may care about what happens. They may want most of their power from 2000 to 4000 because that's where they're driving around mostly. Maybe they're towing stuff. The motors that you'd want for those things are completely different. And even the average power number, I'm assuming that that's what you're talking about, I still don't understand. But the average power production in each of those ranges would be different, and you would get different results even with the same motor. Hello, is there a type of or certain ring you'd recommend for 450 to 500 horsepower NA LQ4? The stock one that's in it, you should just put if it's a wrecking yard motor or a used motor, just leave the ring that's in it. And if it's going to be an NA motor, just leave it there and run a camshaft in it, and you would make 500 horsepower and springs too. Yeah, Bob, I don't know if that's the case. I don't ever say area under the curve. I don't, because I don't know what that means. I don't know what people's definition of that is. That's why I give people curves that show everything. Okay, from 3000 to 6500, here's what it does. 408 with a T4 divided flange turbo BTR stage 3 cam. Will the setup work? Yes, it will work fine. I don't know what you're trying to do. I don't know what turbo you have, what size turbo you have, or how much power you're trying to make. But a T4 turbo, if you have a T4 flange, doesn't matter whether it's divided or not, will go on that motor and it will make boost. Whether or not it's a 1000 horsepower T4 or a 600 horsepower T4 is going to determine how much power you make with it. Richard, have you ever tested a YN Stealth intake manifold? Yeah, we have some at Westech. Could have been anywhere in the world, but I'm here with Rich. See, that's what we like to hear. SD 455 4-speed white with blue racing stripes. That's good. Power under the curve, depending on the vehicle mission and the transmission used, that will dictate the RPM range that the engine will run across between shifts. And that's where we should be looking. So you should be looking only at the RPM range but what is your shift point at? So is your shift point at the horsepower peak? Is it at 500 horsepower or 500 RPM past the horsepower peak? And then what will happen with every transmission that I know of, short of actual racing transmissions, where they would specifically do this, and I don't know why that they would, but every shift is going to have a different split between first and second, third and fourth. You're going to have a different amount of RPM drop. So then do you only look at the one that has the widest drop? And do you tailor it to that? There's a lot of stuff to consider. Let's see. I brought this up yesterday, but nobody said anything. Anyone see the Yamaha 2-stroke outboard V8 with a big snow machine pipes on it? I didn't see that. The average horsepower torque between peak torque and peak horsepower. Maybe. Again, like I said, my opinion is that an area under the curve definition would be wholly subjective. Let's see. Would it be possible to do a 3.3 LS on a 4.853? Yes, without boring the 3.900. Keep the 3.780 bore, or would the rods be too long and cause engine carnage? No, you could put a 4-inch. You could still put a 4-inch stroke in and keep the standard stroke. It won't be a 383. Obviously, the displacement will be much smaller, but I think you still can fit the stroke or crank and rods in without boring it. You might need to notch the bottoms, but that's not a big deal. 5.3 cam and springs, fast intake, 500 all day. No 5.3 with a cam and springs and a fast intake will make 500 horsepower. It has to have ported cylinder heads too. The 24-hour thing has not happened yet. Have you done a test with Zoomies? I haven't, but the guys at Engine Masters have. And I'd like to see what happened with that. Do you have strong opinions on direct injection versus port injection? No, I think that they both work. In fact, if you talk to Brian Tooley, which I did today, and this is why it's hard for me. I get people that want to call and ask me questions and stuff, and I can't get on the phone with a lot of people because the problem is it just sucks up the whole day. This is a perfect example, and I love Brian, but this always happens with us. I called him to ask him, okay, and I wrote them down. Okay, I got 2 quick questions. I could ask you about this, and I got about this, and I got to get right back to what I'm doing. And 97 minutes later, we're like, look, I got to go into a meeting. I'm like, I know, I got to go do my thing. We've been talking long enough. But that's what happens. Is it? And this was again, another technical discussion about all kinds of cool things. But it just goes on and on and on. Hey, is this done? Is this done? Yes. Oh, but what about this? But what about this? So what? Well, when we're doing this, and you need to take a look at this because we did this on the Spintron, and all this happened, and we did this and all these other things. And I'm like, I'm all in, and that's the problem, is that I'm all in. The dogs, yeah. That's Milo on guard, and then the puppies also, because mom's home. Their favorite person is home. Shadow Ops. Yeah, I don't think he was talking about doing a 383. I think he was just saying that, can I still put the 4-inch stroke in there and not bore it? And will it not hit the edge? I think was the question, if I remember right. Otherwise, yeah, you don't want that big of a stroke in a stock sleeve length. About the survey, I'd like to know which fuels you are using. Do you want to see prices on the videos? And nobody even knows I spelled video wrong. Do you want to see prices on the videos of the parts that I test? What does that have to do with fuels that I'm using? You want me to include that in the story? I usually do. I thought that I was pretty good about that. Almost everything gets run. Anything NA usually gets run on 91. Anymore, any of the new turbo stuff gets run on E85. I put a 218, 229, 111 LSA in my 538, claimed it was good to 6,300, and the guy that tuned it only revved it to 5,700 while on the dyno. My gauges and stuff act up going over 5,700. A 218 is not going to make a 218 can still make power up at 6,300. It's not going to make peak power. Is that a 5.3? It's not going to make peak power on a 5.3 at I'll tell you where. It's not going to do it at 6,300. It's going to be lower than that. And let's see. Cathedral Port 5.3. And we'll take a look at I think I have a sloppy cam, a best cam or something like that. That's about there. Actually, I think that's going to be under turbo because we did turbo it. Turbo, pure turbonium. NA, that's a sloppy stage 2. Where do we do that one? Maybe we didn't do that. We didn't do that one boosted though, right? Was that on a 4.8 maybe? I think it might have been. Well, so look at that. I think the Chupacabra is a 216 cam. And with a fast though. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time looking at that. A 218 cam will rev past 5,700. It will definitely rev. It will rev all the way to 6,500. It's just that that's going to be on the downside of the curve. Area under the curve is a summation of the x-axis times the y-axis value, but we have to have start and stop points for that. All right, beer hounds. Area under the curve definitely has a real answer, but most people who talk about haven't taken calculus. Oh, man. A graph tells you more about the value of the power curve of the engine than any other calculation. Alan, I know the 4.8 can be done as a 383. Yeah, it can, but it requires an overbore like the 5.3. The 4.8 and the 5.3 are the same block. If you're going to make 383s out of them, you do exactly the same thing. You get rid of the stock crank, and the 4.8 is shorter than the 5.3. You bore them out, and then you put a 4-inch stroke in it, and you do it. Those blocks are exactly the same. In fact, they say 4.8 and 5.3 on the same block. And if you're running boost, yeah, there's no reason to do a big bore. In fact, if you're running boost, there's no reason to stroke it either. Who is CNS? Released a video of 96 LT4 GM used in the manual vets for that year. The horsepower numbers are higher than a 97 LS1. He cites Auto Performance Test Lab in Atlanta tested 125 LT4 engines. So is this for the guys that want their LT4 to be better than LT1s? Is that what you're talking about? What would a good cam be for a 5.3, for a Suburban? Take a look at all the cams that I have up on the channel and just pick what kind of power curve you want. How often do companies reach out to you to test their products? Did you see the video that I did with Alex Taylor when I was at the NPMC conference? That's what that whole conference was about, sitting down with people and talking to them about doing testing. But I get approached all the time, not from cylinder head guys, and because I know almost everybody in the industry. I've been here for a really long time, so I know the guys at AFR, I know the guys at Trick Flow, I know the guys at Comp, I know the guys at Brian Tooley, and I've met the guys at Texas Speed now, and I know most of the people. So if I want to do something, I just call them up and say, "Hey, do you want me to do a test with something?" And then they either say yes or no. But I get approached all the time about people wanting me to do things with their things for YouTube. Hey, we want you to do a video on our thing. No, pass. I haven't done any of those because they just want, somebody that has lots of views to say something nice about their product. And that's not what I do. I actually test things. And if they have something, like if they had an intercooler and they said, "Hey, would you test this?" That's a thing. That has benefit if it's something that people could buy, if it works, and I can tell you guys or tell you not to buy it if it doesn't work. And I tell them, "Hey, look, if you were asking me to test it, I'm going to test it. And if you ask me to test it, I'm going to do a video about the test. Whatever the results are, that's the results. So if your product doesn't work, that's what I'm going to tell people. So it behooves you to make a good product, because I'm going to tell the truth about the product, whatever that is. So it works or it doesn't work, and people can decide. That's kind of why I do this. Are there any round barrel type water to air intercourse? Are they any good? I don't know. I'm going to test one. Do stock exhaust manifolds hold back power? They do. A header will almost always make more power, even under 450 horsepower on a jet boat. But a lot of times on boat applications, you can't run big, fancy, zoomy headers. One, for noise anymore, but also for you might have a wet exhaust, and you may have passengers in there, maybe too loud. I mean, there's a lot of other things, a lot of other considerations for that. So, so the conspiracy theory is that the LT4s made way more power, but they kept it on the DL because the LS1 was coming out, and they didn't want the better LT4, which they had, would have stopped sales of the LS1. That's the thing. Is that what we're talking about here? I love conspiracy stuff. It's awesome. It's a lot of times not founded in or grounded in reality, but I do like it though. I'm back. It was just on Torque Terms website. Anybody run them? I run them a lot. Will 6-liter crank fit in a 5.3? Yeah, they're actually the same crank, so it fits just fine. They're identical. One World, when you say an LQ4 with a cam and obviously not supporting mods, just a cam and springs, and headers will make 500 horsepower. It will, but the way that we test an LQ4 in the engine dyno, it makes more than 315 horsepower. You're confusing the rated factory power output versus wheel horsepower versus an engine and running on an engine dyno. Those are all different things. You can easily add 100 horsepower with a camshaft. So you can pick your own starting number, whatever you want that to be. Richard, did you cover converting a regular carb to a blow through? I didn't. Why does it seem like people are getting aggro? 58 tooth reluctor 5.3 crank and a Gen 3 6-liter. All of the cranks will interchange, and the reluctor wheel will interchange too. But what rods and pistons are you going to match it with, and is it going to be balanced correctly? You just put in if you have that new reluctor, you can put in the new. Well, I don't know what harness you're running and all that, because you could have a problem with that if you're running the factory ECU and the factory harness, and it was originally a 24, and you're trying to go to a 58. Aggro and a rage quit. Who did a rage quit? Did I miss a lot of the things? I'm just trying to grab like some of the questions out of here. Any tips to revive more than 3 carbs in this chat group to convert to blow through? I don't know how to convert one to a blow through. I've never done it. What's the average percentage power loss at the drivetrain through versus the crank? It's not a percentage. It's actually more like a fixed amount for given drivetrain parts. So now the LT4 is even more powerful than the 01 LT5. Oh, I love this LT4 group getting together and wanting their thing to be the best thing. I don't have any experience with Vinci cams. How about doing a draw through turbo? I do want to do that. Specialty automotive, that's the thing that jumps out at me is like I said, the conspiracy thing is that some third-party test station tested these motors, and I can tell you that I've dynoed a dozen, I'm sure a dozen now, LS3 production motors that they're crate motors. So these are LS3s that just came off the production line. That's how they make these crate motors. They're not anything special about them. They're all just motors that came off the production line. Of those 12 motors that we tested, they didn't vary by one, but by 1 or 2 horsepower. So when they were run on the same manner, So there's no possible way that I don't think that there's any possible way that a production LT4 can vary from 345 to 390 horsepower. I would be very surprised if there was ever one that did that, because I don't know how you gain 45 horsepower. How did you gain that? The heads are the same, the camshaft is the same, the valve size is the same, the timing is the same, the compression is the same, the displacement, everything is the same. Where did you get that from? And please, somebody, or I will shake you. Don't say, oh, but that one's blueprinted. That one's sealed up better. It's not 45 horsepower. It's 5. it's not 45. So that kind of variance makes me very suspicious of those results. And that's the nicest way I can say it. Corey, I have run boost on a conventional carb. You can especially do it if you enclose it in an enclosure like Vortec does. On the auction block, a guy had documentation that is putting down 325 wheel horsepower, estimated 380 crank horsepower. See, I don't ever do that either. I don't ever estimate wheel horsepower to crank horsepower, and I don't go the other way either. How about a 4853 build like a Grand National? Guys build their 3/8, moderate cam timing, smallish turbo with a great response, lots of boost, focusing on maximum average horsepower and torque. I don't know why you think that hasn't already happened like 1,000 times. I'm curious. So we've run turbos with stock cams. We've run them with Truck Norris cams. We've run them with I don't know how we get. I mean, somewhere in between there, there's a smaller cam, but we could run it. I've run boost with a torque cam, so I've run turbos already with those kinds of cams. How about a twin turbo draw through blowing into a tunnel ram? So like an old Gale Bank setup. In the conversation today with Brian, I did talk to him, and he said he has an LSA blower, so I might be able to do some testing with that. I need to get going, but Ropac, if you're thinking that an air to water intercooler isn't better than an air to air intercooler, you need to test more, because it's not even close. And on that note, it's time to go. But I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to post this video up, so this will be up tonight. You'll be able to take a look, and there will be pricing.